Welcome to another episode of our personal empowerment premium audio series, Finding Yourself in Paradise. Hi, I'm Michael Benner.
And I'm Steve Snyder, and our program today is entitled Creative Visualizations. Paying homage to that great book by Shakti Gawain from about 30 years ago, this is really one of the primary tools of self-improvement and personal empowerment. You know, we can do it in various ways. You can visualize, you can conceptualize, but putting creativity together with getting some ideas in your mind about who you are and where you want to go, that's basically the power of creative visualization.
Visualization is a term that many people know now in the 21st century, but Steve's right. Back in the mid to late 70s and early 80s, this term was just emerging, along with a similar phrase, guided imagery, as a way of talking about using the mind's eye. Now, that's a much older phrase, but the mind's eye was sort of a reference to the, how can I say, semi-conscious tendency that everybody has to sort of daydream.
Revelry, perhaps.
Yeah, even the word imagination has image or imagery in it. So we know what the imagination is. We know what the mind's eye is. But when we started talking about visualization and guided imagery and this new field of biofeedback was emerging, and these biofeedback techs were finding that people were able to relax so much more completely and effectively when they used their imagination in this focused way. It's just a very important part now of that general field called meditation or contemplation. And that's what we'd like to talk about today. Not just casting your gaze off into the distance, looking at the sky and dreaming up this or that, but in the celebrated alpha brainwave level of narrow awake and focused passion, really laser beaming your thoughts through pictures. And then we'll talk a little bit about reinforcing that with silent internal language that you speak to yourself verbally but silently, and then the emotional passion as well. You add all of that up, visualization, silent affirmation in a verbal sense inside your head, and some strong passion, and this is powerful suggestion. This is a way to really change your life.
There's so many aspects of visualization when you stop to think about it. I mean, the mind's eye has more power than the real eye does because it can see what is real in memory and it can see what is not real in fantasy. The mind's eye, unlike, for example, when you go to a movie and you're watching a two-dimensional picture projected on a screen, the mind's eye can be three-dimensional. You can see size and shape and color and form and texture and weight. You can make the picture bigger. You can make the picture smaller. You can make it brighter. You can change the contrast. I mean, you have total control over what's going on in your mind. And some people are going, well, yeah, I do that all the time. Other people are thinking, well, I don't even have any pictures up there in my mind. What are you talking about? I mean, and the reality is, even though you don't have pictures in your mind, perhaps, you knew exactly what I was talking about because you conceptualized it. If I say, here's an old one we've used for many years, if I say, imagine an umbrella, some people actually see an umbrella, but even if people don't see the umbrella, they still know if it's open or closed. They still know if it's wet or dry because they have an idea of what the picture would look like even if they're not seeing the picture. And that's just as good. I mean, the mind gets it in either case. So whether you're saying, I'm not seeing pictures, I know what that picture would look like if I did see it, but I'm not seeing it, it's fine. The mind's getting the message. So what we're saying is the power of creative visualization is to take and use the sense of sight beyond its normal abilities. Again, you can create X-ray vision. You can see tiny, like microscopic things with your mind's eye. You can see gigantic galaxies with your mind's eye. So the creative part of this creative visualization is a very important piece. Don't settle for just what comes to you. Stretch your imagination, stretch your mind, and create a visualization that's more intense than anything you could ever actually imagine.
Yeah, go where no one has gone before. I was watching Nova on PBS not long ago, and I found out there really is a holodeck in San Diego. I think it's at UC San Diego. And it's used by scientists and researchers from all over the world who come to this place, and it's like a room that you go in that has projectors projecting from behind the walls and the ceiling all around you. And what they project could be a microscopic view of a molecular structure, for example, or a DNA spiral or something. And these scientists go in, and they also have these glasses that have laser beams attached to the glasses so that the computer that's controlling the projection knows where they are. And it's all interactive. So they spend an hour or two in this room to familiarize themselves with what they're going to go back and study by looking through a microscope later or looking at data on a graph. And they're able to access that imagery. It fleshes out their imagination, gives them an enhanced version of what they've been trying to conceptualize so that they can access it after that. And I thought that was pretty cool because when you say the power of the imagination in many ways is greater than the eyeball, the physical eye, because it can see what's never been seen, it brought that so-called holodeck to mind. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that. We can do it if we can imagine it. You know, Disney said if you can dream it, you can do it. Well, the obverse of that is it's very difficult to create what you can't imagine. I remember when people used to call my radio show and I would catch them saying things like, well, I just can't imagine blah, blah, blah. I'd say, well, maybe that's your problem. Not that it could never be, but that you just can't imagine it.
So the idea of creative visualization is to do several things. One is to program your mind to get what you want, like to imagine the bullseye, to imagine the target, to imagine the outcome, the greatest possible outcome. You can use creative visualization to plan for worst-case scenario, to visualize what's the worst that could happen and what would I do, and see yourself successfully dealing with whatever worst-case scenario is. So in practical matters, you can use visualization to plan ahead for the best and for the worst. You couldn't possibly plan for everything in between, so if you have a plan for the best and the worst, you can handle anything else. You can also use it for problem solving, for the example, to figure something out, like, what do I want to be when I grow up? Well, that kind of question, we can't really go out in the world and look. You can't really find what you want to be when you grow up in the classified ad section or even, in a big list of stuff. You've got to really study yourself. You've got to study your heart. So this is where that other side of the coin, the meditative, intuitive side of the coin comes up, and you can visualize the reactions or responses that come to your mind. You ask yourself, for example, what is it that I want the most, or what would make me happiest, or what path would be most fulfilling for me? And then you let the mind's eye come up with a bunch of different pictures that float by, kind of like a stream of consciousness. This picture goes by, or like a train of thought, like the train cars go by. And you sort of sit back from this higher consciousness sort of observer part, and you watch like a menu of possibilities, things that you maybe could do or could. And of course, your heart will answer with those things that sort of fit with its gifts, talents, and abilities. So all these possibilities start floating up, and you watch the pictures go by. So you can actively program a picture. You can say, I want that picture. I want to picture the bullseye that I'm looking for. Or I want to picture the worst case scenario happening and me handling it brilliantly. Or you can just sort of let pictures come up. Just ask for pictures. Like, I want to see possibilities of what would make me most fulfilled, and then just sort of daydream the pictures. And from a point of view of non-judgment, non-attachment, just watching them go by, you can see and visualize possible futures for your mind.
Steve, you mentioned at the top of today's program Shakti Gawain's now classic book, Creative Visualization. Boy, that caught on like wildfire at the time. There was another book in that period that I liked a lot, though it never really enjoyed the same success in terms of book sales, but I thought it was really a good book, and it was called Visualization, Directing the Movies of Your Mind.
Adelaide Bray.
Yeah. Now, I don't think she's with us anymore.
No, actually, her daughter and I had a conversation just a couple of years ago. Her daughter worked with Vistage.
Oh, really?
So I spoke to her daughter a couple of years ago. She's not, I think, with us anymore. You're right, Adelaide.
But is her daughter continuing the work? Does she work in the field?
In a sense, not exactly. She's not an author.
Well, Her mom, I guess Adelaide, was a psychotherapist, as I remember, and she was using the movies of your mind, so to speak, in her practice. I remember telling her at the end of the interview I did in Los Angeles radio that this is the book I wish I had written. I just thought it was so wonderful in the way she was applying this to therapy, to actually facing what hurts, to give your emotional feelings, for example, not only a color, texture, temperature, allowing your imagination to reach out and touch it, but to go beyond the still picture to a movie in your mind. For example, to use simple regression to pull on a memory of a traumatic incident, whether several days ago or way back in your childhood, and run that movie over again in your mind. We talked last week in our program about sleep and dreams about redreaming a bad dream so that it ends up with a positive outcome. And you can let go of your fears and your anxieties. Well, you can redream in the same way using visualization or guided imagery. Run that movie in your mind of when you were being humiliated or abused several days ago, or, as they say, way back in your childhood, and give it a different ending. In fact, you can imagine holding a remote control and pause the imaginary movie of your mind long enough for you to assert yourself, to imagine the adult you've become standing behind that child and encouraging the child to assert himself or herself and say what they never could have said back then with a vocabulary that they never could have used when you were a little child, don't you see? There's all kinds of applications for this, and it is so incredibly powerful. And I want to spend a couple of minutes on this. It exploits, in the best sense of the word exploit, it exploits a principle that is key to hypnosis and suggestion and autosuggestion, and that is the inability of the subconscious mind to distinguish real from imagined. Now, that may be sort of a negative way to phrase it. Said another way, the subconscious mind, the part of you that stays awake when you're asleep or unconscious, that keeps beating your heart and breathing you and digesting food and all of those miraculous responses, that subconscious mind has a mind of its own, but it doesn't have a will. The will, the volition, is in the conscious mind. It decides, it chooses. The subconscious mind essentially believes everything that it's exposed to. It doesn't say, is this real or is this imagined? It doesn't wonder, well, how can I pretend that I'm 8 years old again? And I don't see what benefit that's going to have. The conscious mind argues with itself, but the subconscious, when you're relaxed anyway, deeply relaxed and amenable to suggestion, believes pretty much anything that it's told.
Yeah, there's a state hypersuggestibility that, hypnotists utilize, and we use in self-hypnosis to make ourselves more suggestible so that whatever it is we hear has more intensity, more power. And, of course, that's based entirely upon the passion. And that's the magnificent thing about the subconscious mind, is that's where emotion is. It lives in the subconscious mind along with imagination. So if you imagine something and it's sort of like a gray, and it's not exactly real, and it's sort of like, okay, it doesn't have that power. But if it's vivid, if it's clear, if it's you see, the power is in the passion, and the passion makes it more bright and more alive and more real and more intense. And like if you ever had a dream where you could fly, or a falling dream, either of those, it seems so real. Your heart beats fast, your adrenaline flows, your stomach drops. It's like it would actually, as if it really happens. Well, that's the kind of passion, that's the kind of intensity you need to put into your creative visualizations to make them most powerful. The basic concept is whatever it is you want to create in your life, you imagine what you want, you picture it, you visualize it as if you've already got it, over and over again with great passion. And if you don't really feel the passion, as Michael was just saying, the subconscious doesn't know real from imaginary. So if you don't really feel the passion, just fake it till you make it. Just pretend you do. Pretend passion is exactly the same as real passion to the subconscious mind. So make the picture seem real. In fact, make the picture seem greater than real, realer than real. The colors can be more vivid than anything you could actually see in the real world. The size could be huge. You could have a movie screen that's 3 miles high. You could do anything you want with the power of the creative mind. And that's one of the great techniques of making things more powerful, is make them bigger in your mind. Or to take away their power, diminish their size. One of the great techniques. Imagine like this big giant problem you have, this overwhelming problem you have, and then make it shrink down to like a postage stamp size, and you hold it in the palm of your hand and go, well, it's really not that big a deal. The mind is amazing in terms of the power it has. And when you add imagination and emotion together, that's where creative visualization becomes most powerful.
I read an article about 15, maybe even 20 years ago about some research that was being done by, what do you call a brain scientist, neurologist, some brain researcher, and they were poking around.
Neurophysiologists?
Could be. And they were poking around inside people's brains and working in particular with schizophrenics and people who suffered from delusions. And they found that the same areas of the brain, the visual areas of the brain, were stimulated in these hallucinating mental patients that were stimulated in normal people with their eyes open, those exact same visual centers. And I felt compelled. I wrote the guy a letter and said, well, hypnotists have known this for 150 years. I'm afraid I insulted him. I never heard back from him. I was looking to, maybe help him out a little bit. But, of course, they're empiricists, and I guess they didn't really want input from someone as subjective and as mystical as I am. But the point is that the brain doesn't care if you're seeing with the eyeballs and those electrical impulses go along the optic nerve to the receptors in the brain, or if you use the mind's eye, the so-called third eye. It corresponds to the 6th chakra, the Ajna center, A-J-N-A, that third eye that you hear about in yoga. And that mind's eye, this so-called third eye, when it imagines through visualization or the movies of your mind, electrical impulses are generated within the brain that move along those same nerves and arrive at the same place. So from the point of the brain's ability to conceive and understand, to conceptualize, there is absolutely no difference between really seeing something and imagining it. Now, take what you know about positive thinking, about the difference between the glass half empty and half full, between pessimism and optimism, whatever it is you know and understand about the importance of suggestion and affirmation, and combine it with visualization. Given the understanding I've just explained, your brain will think it's real when it sees you succeeding, when it sees you with an abundant and prosperous life, with rich and rewarding relationships, doing meaningful work in the community, helping other people. And the brain relishes in that because, as Steve was explaining, you're also applying at the same time, reinforcing these thoughts with the emotional nature. Thoughts and feelings together. Positive thoughts, positive feelings together in this relaxed state with a vivid imagination. Wow, that's the secret. There's just no stopping you.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. One of the most fascinating professions, I don't think I could do it, but I've always been fascinated by it, is actually directing a movie, directing a major motion picture. I mean, all the detail and all involved in doing that. I don't know if I could actually do that, but I have done it in my mind. I've actually created movies, and in my mind been the guy sitting up on that tall chair looking down across the scene, watching the cameraman. And I've played it in my mind because I've been fascinated by the profession. So this is something you can actually do. anyone can do. Sit down and like write a movie. Like, what's the dialogue? Well, you might as well invest energy in what you want, like in creating the ideal outcomes you're looking for, or in solving your problems, or something worthwhile. You could heal the past, you can project a positive future, you can do whatever you want. But, I kind of like focusing in on my fantasies. One of my great fantasies is the gentle overthrow of the school system, seeing the whole system just collapse and change and really reemerge, a phoenix out of the ashes, as a whole new system of educating kids. And I've written a movie in my mind, and I've seen that movie over and over again, and I've got characters like famous actors playing different roles and, playing parts in my movie. And you can, and I'm, of course, the star of the movie. It goes without saying, I'm the star, but
our hero.
But it's fun. It's like good exercise for the mind, and it's a wonderful way of creating several levels of creative visualization, because I'm visualizing myself directing the movie, and then I'm visualizing myself actually watching the movie that we made, And so there's a combination of watching it from the big picture, like being outside of it and watching it, and then going into it and being part of it and experiencing it from within. Creative visualization is such an incredibly flexible tool to create whatever it is you want.
Now, here's another part of this that we really need to address, and that's the idea that the connection between your volition, your willpower, or the conscious mind, and the subconscious, as you relax, it opens. It becomes more integrated. Stress and tension disintegrates and dissembles the powers of the mind. So this is why meditation, contemplation, self-hypnosis, we mentioned biofeedback, autogenics, all of these technologies that empower us involve deep relaxation, because now the conscious and subconscious integrate. Well, so far we've been talking about that integration as if it's only a one-way street. The conscious mind sending suggestions or affirmations, instruction sets, if you will, to the brain, to the subconscious mind. In fact, it's a two-way street. And we can use visualization to consciously receive intuitive input, if you will, or you could think of it as output from the subconscious mind, conceptual thinking, creative thinking. I use the word intuition. These aha experiences that the Greeks talked about as eureka illumination, that inventors and innovators, songwriters and artists will tell you about. They might just be in the shower or walking the dog, and suddenly, bang, this light bulb comes on, and they get a whole invention, right, already thought out. Or a whole song comes through, lyrics and rhymes and alliteration and everything. It's like already worked out. I remember the author Joseph Chilton Pierce telling me in an interview I did that these were thoughts that arrive full-blown. Well, they're accompanied by feelings, too. In fact, often this confirmation rush of, that's it, aha, that's where the eureka comes from. It means I have found it. There's no question about it, and you know exactly what I'm talking about, whether it's the dawning of an idea, a light bulb popping on, or you're thunderstruck, maybe a little or a lot, but wow, here it comes. That's a receptive state. And you can promote that and you can facilitate that by practicing visualization. Now, here's a funny thing. There are people who will say, I don't visualize well. And I would say back to them, how would you know? I mean, compared to what? Compared to whom? Your fragments of pictures in your mind might be more vivid and more valuable than somebody else who's reporting subjectively that they're really, really good. Steve said umbrella, and I saw a yellow umbrella with black spots, and it was wet because it was raining, and I was walking the dog. And yet this person over here that says, I don't know, I don't think I'm doing this very well because it keeps fading in and out, or it jumps around a little bit. You know, there's no real value in judging yourself because there's no way of comparing this subjective experience. The point is that everybody, Steve used the word, can conceptualize it. If speaking to a group of, say, 20 people, I say, all right, everybody, imagine a train, a railroad train. There's no way of knowing. In fact, it's quite unlikely that they're all going to see the same train in the same way from the same angle, right? Some might hear a train more than see a train. Some might sort of feel the feeling of riding on a train. Some get a vivid image of the train from outside, seeing it coming down the track. Somebody might be inside, woo-woo, driving the darn thing and tooting the horn. There's no wrong way to visualize. And this is the beauty of this. As a two-way street, whether you're sending messages, affirmations, or suggestions to the brain via the subconscious, or sitting receptive to your intuition and open to new ideas, there is no wrong way or bad way or inadequate way to visualize. It's just another way to laser beam your attention, to focus your mind so that it's more powerful.
So you can visualize forward into a projected future. You can visualize back into healing the past. You can visualize the now and just be in the experience of what's it feel like to be in my body right now. There's a lot of ways you can use the power of visualization, but let's expand upon it, because visualization, imagination sort of sounds like we're just talking about the mind's eye. And that's, of course, a big part of it. In reality, 86% of all sensory input is visual. So only 14% of the stuff that comes in through your five senses is not visual. But that's important stuff. And there is a mind's ear and a mind's nose and a mind's tactile sensation and a mind's taste buds that we don't want to forget about. This is very important, too. To add to the reality of what we're imagining, we've got five senses, actually even six if you want to call intuition another sense. We've got all these senses that we can actualize, utilize in our power of visualization. So you imagine what you want, as real as you can, as vivid as you can, as powerful as you can, with as much emotion as you can. And you act. It's a script. It's a play. You're playing a part. You pretend that you're feeling this intensity, even if you don't. Because the subconscious can't tell the difference. So you pretend and then you tend. Part of what this visualization is pretending. So you make it up. The feeling like you're just making this up is the right feeling. You are just making this up, but the subconscious can't tell the difference. So see it clearly. In fact, see it more than clearly. See it with added visual highlights, See it glowing in special ways or changing color in special ways. Make it more unusual, more odd, more something that really grabs your attention. The more unusual, the more significant it seems to the mind. The more mundane, the less significant it seems. So make it real, powerful. Make it smell good. Smell is such a powerful, powerful sense. And regardless of whether, I'm not really smelling anything, pretending you're smelling something works exactly the same. Even though you don't get the olfactory sensation, pretending you're smelling a rose, and your mind, the part of your mind that reacts when you actually smell a rose, reacts to that pretending you're smelling a rose. So you can stop and smell the roses in your imagination. Use all of your senses. And then the sense of time is another magnificent thing about the power of visualization, because whereas it may take an athlete, half hour of batting practice to really get it, or a musician a half hour to play a particular piece. You can do it in your mind much faster than that. Time distorts completely. You can do it over and over and over again in your mind in the same amount of time that it takes to do it in reality. So the power of visualization it's like it's having superpowers. You can go beyond what reality allows you. You can go to more vivid color than reality has. You can go to more powerful and wonderful sounds than reality can create. You can have sensations that are beyond extraordinary, so that the mind really gets how powerful this message you're sending it. And that's what creative visualization is about, is the more powerful the message, the more the mind believes that message is powerful. The more the mind believes that message is powerful, the more intensity you'll have when you do put your willpower into gear and click in and go do it.
I mentioned a few minutes ago the correspondence between the mind's eye, visualization, or the movies of your mind, and now we're pointing out it's really sensory imagination. Steve's exactly right, and it's a really good point. We'll call it visualization, but it means imagining that you can hear and that you can smell and taste and touch. And yet, in the 10,000 plus years of yoga, this understanding has always corresponded to the so-called third eye, the Ajna center, the sixth chakra. And since it's likely most of the listeners of this program have a Judeo-Christian background, I'll point out that Rabbi Jesus said, when the eye becomes single, the body is filled with light. What did he mean when he said, when the eye becomes single? And if you study the miracles of Christ, particularly the healing that he does, the number of times that the accounts say he would ask the person that he's healing whether they believe he can do it. Isn't that Christ saying, can you imagine my ability to do this? And why would he ask if it wasn't part of the deal? That he needed the person that he was going to heal to be on board, to have faith, so to speak. Isn't that the same as being able to imagine, to close the physical eye and see with the spiritual eye, the inner eye, so that the body is filled with light? Love and light have always been the mental and emotional equivalents of spirit. Spirit arrives as a feeling of love, and it illumines and enlightens from the inside. This is another way of seeing the bigger picture here. We're really talking about something that is at once new, given all the breakthroughs in science and technology and the research we've mentioned, but at the same time understood since the beginning of time, going back to the pyramids and as old as recorded history, the shamans or shamans, the witch doctors, the medicine women, these people that have worked with nature and the powers of nature. You can call them pagan because they lived before this Messiah or that prophet, but they understood nature. And they understood that we were connected somehow, and that when you relax and when you use your imagination, things are possible that otherwise would not be possible. There's some evidence that the cave drawings that go back 12, 15,000 years were not paintings of a successful hunt that were made after the animals were hunted, but visualizations that the hunters would paint on the wall before they went hunting so that they could fill their imagination with an image of success before they did it.
That's really powerful. For as long as human beings have been around, we've had this ability to do something maybe other animals can do, but maybe they can't, which is to imagine the future, to project ourselves into the future. The more vivid that projection is, the more powerful the subconscious mind is affected by it, and the more it tends to at least co-create reality. I mean, outside factors certainly play a role, but it does tend to have influence. The law of attraction does have a role in, if you're thinking about it, you're more likely to move in that direction. So we're talking about the power of the mind, creative visualization, to use all five of those inner sentences, the sensory imagination process, to go in the past and heal, to go into the future and project, to do whatever it is we want. The more real, the more powerful we can make it. This is really the basic concept. But as Michael mentioned just a few minutes ago, it's got to be done in a relaxed state, because imagination or visualization done in a stressed mode turns into worry. When you're in a stressed mode, your ego, your fear-based mind, which is watching out for you, your survival is paramount, is going to be in a stress mode, is going to be projecting into the future what could go wrong so that you'd be prepared for it. And so worry comes from the mind and imagination and visualization taking place during a stressed mode. But when you get out of stress, when you realize you're not in danger, and of course, one of the easiest things to do is just simply close your eyes. I mean, you close your eyes, your brain goes, nothing's coming at me, nothing's attacking me, nothing is running to hurt me right now. And then taking a deep breath, which lets the brain know, we're not in fight or flight mode. We don't need to hold our breath. We don't need to get ready to run or hit, So close your eyes, take a deep breath. That creates enough relaxation so that the visualization process moves toward what you do want, coming from the higher consciousness of love and growth and joy, instead of coming to that ego place, that stress-based place of fear and worry and anxiety. So imagination is a wonderful thing, but imagination in a stress mode turns into a self-fulfilling prophecy of bad stuff happening. Whereas imagination in a relaxed mode turns into a self-fulfilling prophecy of good stuff happening. So that's what you got to understand. And the secret of putting them together is that you can use the visualization process to get out of the stress mode. You can, whatever it is you want to do, no matter how stressed you are, you can get out of stress simply by closing your eyes, taking a deep breath, and imagining yourself someplace where you wouldn't be stressed. We call that paradise. We call that a safe and peaceful place. We call the state moving away from the overstimulation of wide awake into a much more focused and relaxed place that we call narrow awake. That's really the key, because when we relax, not only does it create the visualizations we have moving toward the more positive, but it amplifies their power. Because as we relax, we literally open up a filter between the conscious and subconscious mind, the reticular activating system, or reticular activating formation it's been called, and we have more access between the two minds. And the more we relax and the more we unwind, the more that ego voice feels safe enough to move out of the driver's seat into the passenger seat. The higher consciousness voice of love, the voice that whispers, that voice can come through and be heard, and that's where the power comes. So there's process of visualizing, there's the process of being unstressed when you visualize, and then there's the process of using that visualization to heal the past or to create a positive future.
So let's practice. And while we do this exercise, and you practice along with us, you might want to think of all of the different applications. We mentioned healing and pain control already, visualizing goals and solutions. How about rehearsing an encounter in a relationship, maybe a job interview or a heart talk that you need to have with your spouse? And before you actually do it, you sit down, close your eyes, breathe, relax, go into the alpha level, and use the mind's eye to visualize, both in a receptive and in a causative sense. Receptive to all of the things that could happen, anticipating what you might not have otherwise anticipated, and then accounting for it, having a plan B. Well, what if this happens? In that case, I'll do this. And then running that movie once it's edited, right? Running it forward and seeing the perfect outcome, the result that you desire. It sure can't hurt, and I bet you can already imagine how it just might help. A lot. Help a lot. Okay. Think of all the times you were afraid and you didn't know what you were afraid of, and you went ahead and did it anyway, and then you said, well, that wasn't so bad. And the next time you did it, it knew it wouldn't be so bad because you could easily imagine doing it again. You've already done it once. That'll give you a sense of the value of this kind of mental rehearsal. So close your eyes and relax. Do a couple of shoulder shrugs and some head rolls to get nice and loose. And sit back if you'd like. Let the back of the chair support you, but still sit up straight, shoulders back, open up the rib cage, and begin to breathe. One and then another. Nice, slow, deep breath. Inhaling through the nose. Wait a beat as you peak, and then exhale just as slowly through the nose or the mouth. Go beyond where you'd normally stop. Wait a beat, And then inhale again, 4 or 5 slow counts for each inhalation and exhalation, just to begin the process of relaxation.
And with each breath, as you begin to feel safe and relaxed, you'll find it easy to let your mind go to a peaceful place, to a quiet space, to that paradise place that you know. And it's so quiet and it's so clear that this place is safe. There's no room for fear. You allow yourself to just unwind and direct the movies of your mind, experiencing the sensation of creative visualization. See, hear, smell, touch, and feel. What you're doing in your mind, you are destined to find, is going to seem more real than real. Whatever you imagine, whatever you create, taking yourself from good to great or healing those things that used to hurt, whatever you choose to do, the power of visualization is a wonderful tool for you. So see it, hear it, taste it, smell it, touch it, feel it, make it seem real. Add passion to what you visualize, to project the future or to heal. You have the power inside of your mind to determine what you want the most and to be able to find the path that will take you there the most wonderful way. Direct the movie of your mind. Or perhaps it's a play. But however you do it, it's up to you. You wrote the script, you direct it too, you're the actor, you're the producer. You even get to clean up the stage. Whatever you imagine, write it on the page and create it in your mind. And as you do, your mind will find that it just wants to follow through on what you create. Your mind wants to be great.
Remember times in your life when you've been really successful. Maybe when you were a little kid and you did something that made everybody proud and they all told you so. Recall that feeling. Maybe you got a really good grade once or twice, something that really stood out for you. And you can easily remember the wonderful sense of fulfillment and success and accomplishment. Recall that feeling. Or you got a big hit, a double, and you drove in the winning run, or a triple, or a home run, or in kickball on the playground. Somebody that you wanted to impress was impressed. Even though it was the third grade, you remember how you felt. And throughout your life, like harvesting ripe fruit, collect a series of these experiences, these successes, these times when you felt capable of accomplishing your dreams, of really excelling and arriving at a successful outcome. And gather all of those feelings together. It's not an effort, it's more a matter of allowing yourself to feel those feelings now as you visualize in your mind's eye a solution or a goal, an outcome or desired result that is pending now in your life. See it, feel it, taste it, smell it, embrace it, and feel yourself reveling in the fulfillment that it's bringing you even now. That like a package you ordered in the mail and UPS is going to deliver it, or FedEx will bring it right to your door any day now. You know that. You don't even have to check the tracking online. You know it's going to be delivered. That's the feeling that you use in these relaxed states to fill every cell in your body with the love and the light of accomplishment. And say to yourself, gently but firmly, and so be it. It is done. As if it were already accomplished. It is done. So be it. And prepare to bring yourself back to the waking state.
Remember to reinforce that picture in your mind every day. Keep in mind, repetition has a major role to play. And now take a deep breath. As it feels comfortable for you, open your eyes and come back to wide awake from that focused passion alpha brainwave state of narrow awake back to this more in tune with all the stimulus out there wide awake state. It's a good place to live, but we need narrow awake to balance it. We need to get out of the stressful world more frequently and move into the world of alpha where we can use creative visualization.
You know, as we come up on the holiday season, I'm thinking New Year's, and what a good time that is for resolutions. And we should do a program a few weeks from now on starting that New Year off.
Let's make a New Year's resolution to do just that.
A show on New Year's resolutions. I think that'd be a good idea. Hey, thanks for being with us. I want you to check out a new page that Steve has posted on the internet for you. I think it's really cool. It's called Snyderisms.com.
Yeah, SNYDERISMS, Snyderisms.com. It's got my philosophical little poems on it. It's got free programs for kids, speed reading and study and memory and test-taking skills, some of the articles and poems I've written as well, and also my mastery product, 30 Days to Mastery of the Narrow Awake State, with video and audio and books and workbook. However you learn best, whether you want to read first and then listen and then watch, or watch first and then read and then listen, however you learn best, it's all there for you to master the state of narrow awake. 30 days, whether you do it one day at a time every day or one day a week, 30 days of investing in an hour or so into this state of narrow awake, and you'll become truly a master of the ability to get out of the state of wide awake at any time you want and focus your mind, focus your energy in this incredible state of narrow awake. So come to Snyderisms.com, get the latest of the philosophical wisdom that I'd love to share with you, and pick up those programs for the kids and those for yourself as well.
I'm thinking that's going to be a great gift for a lot of people, students, adults of any age, whatever business you happen to be in, or the quality of your relationships. This is complete mastery. Steve's got 5 DVDs, 30 premium audio programs that run about 50 minutes each, and 2 books, plus an instruction sheet that goes along. The DVDs will mail to you. The audio programs and the books you can download once you order it. But it's easy to find on Snyderisms.com. Spell it again.
SNYDERISMS. The one question I never got wrong in school: how do you spell your name? Snyderisms. SNYDERISMS. Snyderisms.com.
Thanks for being with us. We'll talk to you next week. Hope you're in the holiday spirit. We sure are here in Maui, Hawaii. And as always, be gentle, love life, and take care of each other. For Steve Snyder, this is Michael Benner. Aloha from Maui.